So you guys really liked my last video where I fixed underpowered specials in Splatoon, so I'm back today with 3 sub-weapons I think could use some tweaking. Thankfully, sub-weapons are in pretty good state balance-wise at the moment, so these are mostly minor changes. If you enjoyed this and want to see me do this for weapons next, because there are a few, make sure to subscribe because we are so close to 2K, and let's get into it. So starting us off is the Sprinkler. Sprinkler is okay in terms of power, but it's still a bit weak for some things they want to do. It's mostly played right now for cooler botting on Pencil, not really Dynamo, which has the same kit, because it's better to have a weapon that can be an anchor and a support at the same time that gets cooler fast, rather than a slow, inconsistent midline. So anyways, Sprinkler is just kind of weak, so there are 2 buffs and 1 small nerf I want to give it. For the first buff, I'm going to make it shoot more droplets so that it hits more ground fast, but I want to decrease the paint it puts on the ground. If it shoots more droplets, it will also paint more, and I think it would be better if Pencil didn't get more coolers than it already does. I want it to shoot more pellets, so there's more risk involved when going to destroy a Sprinkler, while also giving it higher priority because of the next buff I'm going to give it, which is slightly increase the damage dealt per droplet from 20 to 38, so that it combos with what it's most used on, Snipe Rider, but then it also combos with 96 Gal and sometimes S-Blast as just an extra. Sprinkler is in a good spot as is, but maybe some of its kits could see more use. Next off is Toxic Mist. This barely sees any use at all because it's just not very viable, because it doesn't do much, and the weapons that have it aren't really picked in comp. It does have valuable abilities, but it doesn't really get to use them. Let's fix that. I have 1 nerf and 2 buffs again. Starting with the buffs, I'm going to target a few things. The first thing I'm going to do is tone down the ink it consumes. Most weapons that have Toxic Mist can't afford to use 60% of their ink tank because of high ink consumption or other factors. So I'm going to reduce it from 60 to 45% because I just feel like it's too much and weapons with Mist don't want to use that much ink for a mediocre sub. The next thing I'm going to do is increase the rate and decrease its speed by 15% so that it's more consistent at getting targets, but also to balance this out, I'm going to give it a small nerf. I'm going to nerf the duration it stays persistent from 5 to 3 seconds just because otherwise it would be too annoying to fight. Overall, Toxic Mist is a good concept, but not really viable on a lot of weapons that it's on, either because it doesn't have the synergy or the synergy is hard to pull off, which I don't think a sub should have, because it should have good use cases. And finally, we have the sub that is possibly the worst sub in the entire game, introduced in Splatoon 3 that's almost never seen any competitive use, Angle Shooter. Angle Shooter has a lot of problems. For one, it's just insignificant. If you touch the line, there isn't really any risk because all it does is track you for 5 seconds, which can be cut off by about a full second with 1 sub of sub defense. So there's not really any risk of running through the line. Other subs that take around 40% of your ink tank, like Burst Bomb, give much more use than just being a line that tracks people for a very short time. That's actually really hard to get a hit on. Unlike Angle Shooter, Burst Bomb actually gets consistent value, but maybe we can help it out a bit. Though people are already using it as a glorified burst bomb to paint their feet. Right, so I have 3 buffs for this sub. Firstly, I'm going to make the line do damage. Everyone wants this for the sub. It would actually add a risk to crossing the line. For the damage, I'm going to make it 15 so that it's just like stepping in ink. I don't think it has to be any more than that. For the second buff, I'm going to increase the tracking time from 5 seconds to 9 seconds. It's absurd how Point Sensor has a massive AoE radius and it tracks longer than Angle Shooter, which is just a measly line that doesn't really do much. It's much easier to get a hit with Point Sensor than Angle Shooter, so why does it have less tracking time, Nintendo? I'm not going to reduce ink usage because I feel like it would be worth the 40% now, but I am going to increase its range by just a tiny bit. Not too much because I don't want to overtune it, but just enough. This will definitely help it see some use on weapons like Rapid Blast of Pro Deco, where it's used the most, way more, and just help the sub actually do what it's supposed to do. So that's how I would buff these 3 subs. If you enjoyed and want to see me do this one more time for weapons, consider liking and subscribing, because at the time of writing, we are 3 subscribers away from 2,000, and have a good one. Dog, the only thing you hacking is my heart. I mean,